Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wrestling Royalty. Welcome to Gimme a Hoya, whichever channel you're watching it. Thank you very much for being here, and I hope you're having a lovely Friday evening. We are live, and we're going to be talking about the Clash at the Castle 2024. You might have already seen, if you're in the UK or in Europe, etc., that SmackDown has already happened. We are in, what time are we on? 10:30? SmackDown's already been gone for a couple of hours already, and it's just me tonight because, as you might have seen over on Gimme a Hole, Sam was covering that live, and you can watch that video back whenever you like to. If you're in the US, you can watch Sam watching SmackDown and get an idea of what was going on, because I believe, again, like it was in Lyon in France a few weeks ago, it hasn't aired in the US. So we've seen it across here. It hasn't aired on the US TV. So I'm going to put this right up front at the top. Spoiler alert, if you are watching the US, SmackDown has happened. There may be things that we discuss here in the sense of anything SmackDown-wise, so Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles and the Bayley versus Piper Niven match in particular. There are going to be some spoilers. If you haven't seen SmackDown and you want to watch SmackDown with fresh eyes, might not be the one for you, but we are going to be talking about them. I'll sort of mention it in passing. A couple of things happened that I can't avoid when talking about it because I have seen it and we know what happens. But it's just myself, as I say tonight. Sam has had a very stressful week. He's been covering a lot of things over in his day job, a lot of video game stuff going on. So he's done his bit. He has done the SmackDown watch along, and we are now going to be previewing tomorrow night. But if you have watched SmackDown, let me know what did you think? Did you think the Scottish crowd delivered? Were you a little bit disappointed? Let me know what you think, because I'm seeing mixed things. And from me watching it personally, I think there was a couple of things that they did well. They were allowed for some people, maybe not for others. But this is very much a case of when you look at the card, there's two matches from SmackDown on the Clash of the Castle card. There's three from Raw, and arguably some of those are a little bit hotter. But they did heat up, especially the Cody versus AJ match, and there was loud cheers from the Scottish crowd. The Glaswegian crowd were very up for Cody coming out. And yeah, we'll go through some of the comments because I can see Mifflet's in. Good to have you win. I hope you're having a lovely Friday. Thank you for joining. He said hi, hello, right back to you. And the pop Randy got was cool. So yeah, there's going to be an interesting mix, because if you are watching the US, you might have the idea what we're talking about. But we'll talk about little bits and pieces. But let me throw up that picture. We are up in Scotland for this Clash at the Castle. Now, you might remember a couple of years back, and it's strange that it was a couple of years ago, we had the first Clash at the Castle, which was in Cardiff, Wales. Maybe not known specifically for its castle, very much dragons and things like that, with it being in Wales. Scotland has an abundance of castles, so this one, I guess, makes even more sense. But yeah, I thought personally it was pretty decent. And the idea of having them back in was quite last minute. They've been pushing these international PLEs. Recently, we had the one across in France last month, and then in August, so in a couple of months, we're going to be across in Germany. So it'll be really cool to see what the German crowd will deliver as well. In the meantime, we've also got Toronto next month for the Money in the Bank. Very much excited for that. I love the Canadian shows because I think the Canadian fans are very loud. So really cool. But Mimplet says they saw it on Twitter, so they're from the US. So there must be stuff that's coming out. I think some of the dirt sheets or some of the sort of social media accounts have been posting stuff, but I don't know if it's actually officially been released across in the US. But nevertheless, we will kind of just talk about it as if it has been. So we're going to dive straight in, and we're going to talk about Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable for the IC title. And this is one that has been kind of brewing, I guess, from the few weeks after WrestleMania. Even before that, we kind of had that training montage moving forward into WrestleMania, where we had Sami Zayn getting trained by Chad Gable. And yeah, it was. I think this is one that's been interesting, because on Raw this week on Monday, the crowd was awful. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. The crowd was terrible. But the one thing that they did pop for very heavy and very loudly was for Otis in this kind of triangle thing they've got going on here. And obviously Chad Gable is doing a great job of being a heel. So I'm really interested to see how this plays out in Scotland, because as we go through the card, like, you kind of start thinking like they could change the title they could change a few titles. They could change no titles. And this is the one that I think is prime for picking. If they're going to change a title tomorrow night, and they don't seem to like to change any of the bigger titles, we'll go through that because I think one of them might change. I think this is one that we could see change because Sami Zayn had that massive moment at WrestleMania. Obviously, going over Gunther was a big thing and a shock, really, if anything. And he's then becomes embroiled in this straight away. Now, often you kind of have your champions built up coming out of WrestleMania. You give them a couple of easy victories, make them look like a solid champion. But here, he's been kind of thrown straight into the deep end against someone who the crowd was really pushing to be involved at WrestleMania. And I think since then it's evolved. He's doing some great character work. Chad Gable's, the way he is with the rest of the Alpha Academy, he just makes you want to hate him. And I think he's done a fantastic job doing that. However, I think tomorrow night we could see Chad Gable win. If he doesn't win, I would presume it's going to set up some sort of feud with Otis moving forward. But that would also suggest that maybe there is something in the contract negotiation that Chad Gable isn't going to be sticking around in WWE. That is quite surprising because I think he's finally found a character to get his teeth into. Some of the stuff really reminds me of like Kurt Angle when he was going through the Ruthless Aggression era. But he's also, we've seen it a number of times. He's got that comedy chops. It wouldn't even be a massive shock to see him align with the Creed brothers because that's a rumor that's been kicking around for a little while. We've seen them have interactions backstage. Maybe he sheds off the Alpha Academy and goes in a completely different direction. Maybe we get a little bit of help tomorrow. But I think it'd be a fascinating one. I think they could put on a great match, and I'm glad it's a very short card. It's only 5 matches, and this is one that I think will get a little bit of time to breathe because we saw a triple threat with both of these guys involved, with Bronson Reed being the third. But I think now it's time to let these guys have a good 15-20 minute match. They're both very capable. You've got a technician in there. You've got Sami Zayn, who is just insane in the sense of like the performances the match you can put and bring out the emotion in the crowd as well, which I think is going to be key tomorrow night. I think the Scottish crowd will be up for every match. But it'd be really interesting to hear those Olay chants and things like that. So, yeah, let me know. We've got Martin B in. Lovely to see you, buddy. I hope you're enjoying the WWE being back in the UK. He just says hello. It's been a while. It has. It's been too long, I would say, as well. Miplet is going with Sami with some help from Otis. Now, Otis has obviously helped the last couple of weeks, and then this week in particular, then got in his face and then left. We thought we were going to see Otis, step up and step out of the shadow and all the shackles that he's been put under in Alpha Academy now, but not yet. So will we see it tomorrow, or are we going to see him help one last time? That's the kind of big thing going into it. Gable is taking home the gold. Look at his grin. He's just, he's putting in that work as being a heel. I think this is the time to give him the belt. I think he can do some pretty cool stuff with it, and give us a heel champion with the Intercontinental title going forward as well. Maybe if he wins and he gets help from the Creeds and Ivy, as we were chatting about that. Absolutely, I think the Creeds could help. It's whether they're kind of flown across. It becomes a bit easier with these international ones, isn't it? As to see if anyone's been bumping into them in like the streets of the hotel. There's a couple of spoilers going around that there is a certain somebody who we were expected to be across and has been spotted in the hotel in Glasgow as well. I won't be saying it and I won't be kind of highlighting it because I'd love people just to be able to watch it and enjoy that moment if it happens. Martin said Ivy was talking to Chad on Raw this week. Mark's in, our moderator's in as well. Good to have you in, Mark. Hope you're having a good Friday evening. Chad's 100% winning. He signed that deal pretty much. I think he's been promised the title. Well, we'll see. Only way I see Sam win is if he hasn't signed. Mifford says, do we think we get anything from Uncle Howdy? I'll address that now because I know obviously like Don will cover all of this sort of stuff. He's going to be on Raw with Dan on the watch along on this Monday because as we've seen through the Howdy Hangouts and when Don's been going through stuff and on social medias, etc., there's a countdown timer that's looking like it's going down, and it's it seemed to point that it was going to be on Monday Night Raw. rather than it's in Scotland. I think that's a mistake, personally. I think after the couple of crowds I've had in the last 2 weeks for Monday Night Raw have been pretty quiet. I don't know where Raw is on Monday. I will admit that. If it was somewhere like a hotbed like Chicago, but I think SmackDown in Chicago, that's fine. I'm worried that if it's a quiet crowd like it was this Monday, then it's going to defeat, what they're trying to achieve. Had they put it on in Scotland, they would have got a massive reaction because it would have been something new, and the Scottish crowd and the European crowd would really appreciate having that. So I'm a little bit shocked that there isn't anything planned. I'd love a bit more of a tease, maybe some sort of like, not just like a QR code flashing up, but something like a bit more substantial, especially if we are getting that close to it. Maybe have the countdown on the Tron, or well, there isn't a Tron, I guess, so maybe have it like on some sort of screen, or the kind of advertising hoarding and stuff. I just think that would be something to put us in the mood for Monday, if that is when they're going to pull the trigger. The timer was broken by design. The original timer is correct. The other thing is, for me, I think it would be really cool if they've just trolled everyone and they've got a timer that's counting down to Monday, and they actually do something on Saturday night, because it would be unexpected at that point. And that, to me, would be a way to kind of get that narrative back on the storyline, and not expecting it to happen when it should happen. And that fits that narrative. Do you not think? Let me know. Do you want to see something on Saturday, or are you happy that the countdown's on and we're going to see it on Monday? It is 2 days. Yeah, I guess it's like 2 days and X amount of hours. So, as Martin said, I'm sad for Nikki Cross more than anything, an appearance here. Yeah, they've loaded this card with Scottish natives, or and Scottish favourites. So it is a bit of a shame if Nikki Cross is involved in this, which for all intents and purposes, it seems like she is. Nikki Cross seems to be like the only Scottish person who's not going to get to have a match or some sort of appearance in front of her home crowd as well. But Miplet says, yeah, I think we're going to get a tease or something. And Mark's put up the correct timer there. So I think we'll see something. 3 days, 2 hours, 16 minutes, 16 seconds. You don't have to keep putting it in. don't do it every second. But yeah, we'll go back to the card. But that's my thoughts on the Uncle Howdy stuff. I hope it happens. I don't know if we will. We have got, as I said, we've got a lot of Scottish superstars are on the card this time, which will be interesting to see which ones can actually win and take home some championship gold. Here we're going to have Bayley for the WWE Women's Championship against Piper Niven. Now this is a really interesting one, because they always do these kind of like pre-show weekend things where they have a load of the fans that it's free to attend, and they do like speeches on the superstars, come out, do speeches, Triple H comes out, etc., gets the fans all hyped up before the SmackDown. And Bayley got a huge reception, and then she got the "Hey Bayley" chant as well just before the match that they had, which was Naomi versus Chelsea Green. But Bayley was ringside for Naomi. Now this is an interesting one, because Bayley's been a sort of a darling or a sweetheart for the UK for a long time. I think it was actually in Glasgow where that "Hey Bayley" one started as well. So it was never going to go the way of Piper Niven being like overwhelming hometown favorite, like we might see with Drew or someone like that. But yeah, I think we're going to see a very loud chant all the way through for Bayley tomorrow night as well. So yeah, I just think it's very interesting, because I'm not going to get into it too much. Scotland didn't have a good night tonight in the Euros. That's another aspect of this crowd, by the way. That crowd tonight isn't going to be the same crowd that is there tomorrow, because there was a lot of people who are football fans and wrestling fans, and Scotland were playing in the European Championships tonight. So those fans who were watching the match didn't go to SmackDown. Now, I know that's a big thing, because there was a lot when the tickets went on sale about not buying a combo, but they will go on the Saturday. So those football fans who start the chants and are very vocal and very loud will be in attendance tomorrow, you'd have to think. So I would imagine it was loud tonight, it's going to be louder tomorrow, and maybe there'll be a bit more patriotism, and maybe they will get behind Piper Niven. But I think Bayley's going to be the favourite here. It's very difficult to look past Bayley winning this. I think just the way it's been set up, it's more like, it kind of feels like Piper Niven's been hot shot for this event and nothing else. I don't see where it would fit in. I would like to see Chelsea Green with the championship more than I'd like to see Piper Niven. I think Chelsea Green's been doing some great work for a long time. And it made me laugh tonight. There was a shot where they were backstage and Bayley was talking to Naomi. And as they were walking through the corridor, you saw Chelsea Green try and get out of the camera shot. And then as the camera tried to help her not be in the camera shot, they went back to see Piper Niven being escorted to where she needed to be. So like there was a few logistical things I think that went wrong in the Hydro tonight or weren't conducive to how they usually do things in WWE. But yeah, it was a bit of a cluster. But we also got to see how the fans are going to react. But it would be an interesting dynamic were Piper Niven to win, because there's this whole thing that Chelsea Green thinks she'd be champion as well, which would be kind of funny. I just don't see them going that direction here. I think Bayley's going to hold the title a little bit longer, and we'll get to see her go up against maybe Jade or will she keep it through to SummerSlam where she goes against Nia? There's also that possibility as well. And then they can throw up people in the meantime. Midfoot says Green's going to cost Piper the match. They're going with Bayley. Difficult to go against that. I think that's probably true. Martin says, as much as I love Piper, I don't think now is her time. Definitely potential there to put the belt on her in the future. Yeah, I think they just need to build her a little bit more as this sort of like the person who can like break through, because we all know she's a great wrestler. She's respected backstage. I think there's a couple of times where she's saved some of the female wrestlers from getting pretty badly hurt during matches, and she's a very safe worker, and I think she's massively respected backstage as well. We've got Channel Con Jenny in as well. Good to have you in on Friday. I hope you're having a lovely evening or day wherever you are in the world. If Nia wasn't the SummerSlam plan, Piper should be winning it. Yeah, see, that's the thing, is like when you look at it from the dynamic of would they put Piper Niven versus Nia Jax as a big SummerSlam match after Nia Jax won the Queen of the Ring? I don't think so. That's why I would lean towards Bayley's going to win here. What have we got next? Another Scottish pair of Scottish superstars here are going to be going for the Women's Tag Team Championship. So with Triple Threat, which seems to be what they like going with, and throwing a few teams in at the same time. Now, I personally think that Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn could definitely win here. This is one that they could change. It just depends on how far along I think that WWE think Jade Cargill is. Is she ready to go out on her own? Are they going to pull the trigger on that one, or do you go with someone like Shayna Baszler and Zoey Stark, who are very believable? This is one that I think is quite difficult to call, because they could go in any direction. If they want to play to the Scottish audience and the Scottish crowd, this is the match where they're going to do it, because I think it's set up with it being a triple threat that the champions don't need to be pinned. Jade Cargill could still look very strong, and you could have, like Zoey Stark or Shayna take the pin. Shayna had a great match on NXT Battleground. I thought that against Lola Vice in the NXT Underground was a great match, probably my favorite match of that night. It was kind of proof that format can work, and when you delve into how difficult it was for Shayna Baszler and Lola Vice to pull that off, because that was a sort of shoot UFC match, but pulling your punches. It was a very strange dynamic, but I thought they did really well. And it was a kind of almost a sort of cluster ending that worked, because you see those kind of decisions made in UFC or mixed martial arts. So Shayna's doing some great work, or has done some great work down in NXT. But I think it's time that the main roster got to see what Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn are all about. I think Isla Dawn is great. I think she's the one who they kind of need to push a little bit more. But then, of course, Alba Fyre, when she was Kaylee Ray, is the longest reigning UK champion, NXT UK champion, and has proved that she can do that that she can hold the titles for a long time. So maybe this is the one that they throw to the Scottish crowd, and it will be believable as well. Midfoot is going with the Spooky Girls. Yeah, do they have like an official tag team name? I know they're kind of like painted as like Scottish witches or things like that. I don't know if they have a name. Is it like Fire and Dawn or something? Anyway, Robert Law says, hello to you, sir. Thank you for joining us. For me, multi-team matches should be elimination tags. Yeah, I don't like the way they do this thing where it's like only 2 teams are in because it's no DQ. So why does that stop someone getting involved? I think if they're going to do that, they have to throw at least one representative from each in, or make them a tornado tag match, because if there's no DQ, what are you going to do if they'll get involved? The referee can't throw them out. That's against what the whole purpose of the triple threat is. It's very strange. Yes, thank you, Mark. They're called the Unholy Union. Thank you for that. Because they think we're dumb. Yeah, it's just one of those little things where, like, I know we're supposed to suspend our disbelief, our belief for some of it, but like, just treat us like we're adults as well, because it doesn't take that much logic to think they can't be DQ'd. So just get in the ring and do your thing. I don't understand it. Aaron says tonight, will Baron Corbin be impersonating the wrestlers every week on SmackDown? Well, Baron Corbin had quite a big showing today. He got involved in earlier on. He got involved in the Apollo Crews match, and he was helping Apollo Crews against Legado del Fantasma. So he went full face. He's going to be a good guy moving forward. And the crowd were into him as well, which is quite funny because I know he's quite big when it comes to France. France are really big on Baron Corbin, which is quite funny that we get him instead. But never mind. I call them Fyre and Desire on SmackDown show we did. Yeah, I don't know why. I thought there was, like, maybe they did have a name like that at some point, but Unholy Union works as well, I guess. But they didn't go very well for the Unholy Union on Raw, did it? They seemed to get almost like squashed in that match out of nowhere, and they were the kind of forgotten ones by the end. So maybe that's kind of hinting that they'll have some big moment in Glasgow, and I'm here for it. We'll move on to, we've got the I Quit match between AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship or Universal Championship. They changed the name of it, however they want to call it. But for Cody's belt, this is a really interesting one because, and you're going to have to bear with me a little bit here, because there's a bit of a theory doing the rounds that Cody Rhodes put on his Instagram that his mum has come across with him to Scotland. Now, anyone who's watched anything in WWE when it comes to I Quit matches in the past needs to understand Cody Rhodes is the consummate babyface, and the babyface can't be the person to say I quit just because he gives up and it's too hard. That's against the storytelling they always try and tell. Now, because of how big a babyface it is, the only way that he's going to be able to do this, and they've targeted in the past, is if AJ Styles goes after the heart of Cody Rhodes rather than the body. And in this circumstance, if he's brought his mum across and she sat ringside, maybe we see her brought into it like we saw with Beth Phoenix, etc. I have this like horrible feeling that maybe we see Mama Rhodes get dragged into the ring by someone like Mia Yim, and that's going to be the way that we go. Now on SmackDown, these guys had a killer promo where the likes of Ring of Honor and New Japan and AEW were mentioned. AEW wasn't mentioned by name, but it was the company that you set up with your friends that you quit. So AJ very much going after the fact that he quits every promotion he's been in, he runs away, etc. And Cody came back and said, no, I just believe in myself because that's who I am. It just makes me a little bit nervous. And I think sometimes WWE play on it, you know, like the tricks that they pull in I Quit matches. And say we saw with Beth Phoenix, that was how Edge quit when Judgment Day attacked her, and, you know, he was doing it to save his wife. Here, does Cody try and save his mum? Possibly. And the big thing about Dusty Rhodes was he used to have like these massive epic trilogies against people for the title. Now, he was always the person who was chasing the belt. He was a champion multiple times, outside of WWE, but he was very much a case of, I'm the babyface chasing the championship. And I'm just, part of me thinks is like, will they go with that with Cody? But as Mark says, does that throw away the bloodline story that they've been doing, and you know how he kind of overcame that? So there's big questions to be asked, but it's an interesting one to see. Why have they put this on this card? There's another big title match, which I think is going to be the one that headlines. But if this doesn't headline, would you change that championship? So there's a lot of questions again, like we always say, in terms of the match card and the placement on the match card, and who's going to open, close the show, etc. So Let me know, is this going to be the match where Cody Rhodes loses his title and is AJ Styles going to have one more run before he calls it a day? I do like the fact that we're seeing a different side to Cody. Cody Rhodes is very much kind of showing a bit more aggression. He's coming out swinging, which we haven't seen before. He's kind of always been that good guy who's very suited and booted, whereas like the last couple of weeks, he's been ready to go to war because he was tricked, a la Mark Henry and John Cena. But yeah, cool. They're pulling on different threads here. And I'm just interested to see, will we see any of the kind of shenanigans that we've seen at I Quit matches before, like a recording of Cody saying I quit or things like that? Will the Good Brothers get involved? Will Mia Yim get involved? Lots of questions. And I'm excited to see the answers tomorrow. But Mark says, for me, this side of Cody should have come out after the Brock story. Yeah, I guess like it probably should have come out really like prominently in the build-up to Mania when Rock was trying to take his place. Now, we've obviously seen like certain things from is it Brian Gerwitz, the Rock's writer, who was involved in kind of piecing that story together, that Cody didn't play it the way that it was supposed to be done, and that kind of spiraled. But once that was done, you should have like led into it, and like Cody should have been a bit more aggressive in that build-up. But we're seeing it now, which is cool. You've got to give him layers in terms of like where he's going in the future as well. So better late than never, I would say, on that one. But yeah, let me know in the comments, who's going to win? Is Cody going to retain? Is it going to be Drew? Drew's the next one. I know why I had that on the line. It's going to be AJ Styles. We do have Drew on the card, and we are going to see him go after a championship belt like we did 2 years ago at Clash at the Castle. Didn't end well for him 2 years ago, and rumors abound it probably will go the same way this time. But this is a different kind of Drew from what we saw 2 years ago. This is someone who's very plugged into social media, very plugged into who he is as a character. I think then he was just like the good guy, the perennial good guy. And we're seeing him have this match in Wales. But this time we're seeing him with a fully rounded character. He's probably doing some of his best character work that he's done arguably ever. And he's going up against Damian Priest for the World Championship, the WWE World Championship. And I have a question for you guys. I'd love you to drop this in the comments. What sort of champion do you think Damian Priest has been so far? Do you think this is one that we are going to have to let's like build slowly, or is this one where it's just not clicking for people and it's not resonating as a champion? You know, do you need to give him a little bit longer? But I feel like this might have been one that's been booked into a corner, as Mark said. Surely Drew shouldn't be losing Clash at the Castle again, but for the Drew versus Priest story, kind of has to. I don't think it's kind of set the world alight, and part of that is because it's overshadowed by the rivalry with CM Punk. Now, do we see CM Punk again? There's rumors on Twitter, and you know anyone who kind of guessing would have thought possibly, but you then have to look ahead and then think, who are we going to see in that main event? It has to be Drew. Has to be Drew again. The crowd is going to be unbelievably behind Drew. So if CM Punk is to get involved, CM Punk is instantly becoming the heel in this one. And if he costs him, the crowd is going to go absolutely bananas. However, do they do it where CM Punk helps Drew win because he wants to take the belt off Drew? Is that a direction that we go? So does it, again, like the AJ versus Cody one, a lot of questions to be asked here. So we know CM Punk's not going to take this line down. We know CM Punk is going to be involved in some respect here, but how they do it is going to be an interesting one, because do you want CM Punk to be the heel moving forward? Do you want Drew to kind of continue being like how he's been the last few weeks? That's the kind of like the dynamic you've got to figure out of where it's going to end up. Because the other thing is CM Punk, how healthy is he? When's he going to be coming back? When's he cleared to wrestle again? Can you stretch that out to SummerSlam? Do you want to stretch that out to Money in the Bank? Is he ready by then? You know, that's the kind of questions as well that are up for this. And also then you've got Gunther, who is going to be fighting whoever the champion is at SummerSlam. Now, Gunther versus Damian Priest, does that set your world on fire? Does that make you instantly want to watch SummerSlam? Or would you prefer to see Gunther versus Drew McIntyre? Would you prefer to see Gunther versus CM Punk? I think they've kind of backed themselves into a corner of to like who's going to be here, and that stipulation that Gunther and Nia Jax have to have their championship matches at SummerSlam almost puts a countdown timer on who is going to have the title when it gets to SummerSlam. So yeah, this is a weird dynamic. Again, I'd love to hear in the comments what you think about this one. I think Drew wins, but I think he wins by DQ. And that's the way they kind of get around it. So maybe he gets a shot a bit further down the line. If it wasn't for the crowd's reaction, Punk would already be a heel. Yeah, but it's a difficult one because of how Drew carried on at WrestleMania. I think he was still being like really heelish and getting in someone's face that it was almost justified in how CM Punk responded. And then he's been doing the sort of giving him the chase around, things like that. It's, yeah. And maybe in this Triple H era, are we just seeing things get very blurred when it comes to heel and faces, and things aren't as black and white as they used to be, and it's not as kind of cartoonish. People have different sides to them, and I kind of like it. I'm here for that because you make it a little bit more real, a little bit more realism injected into it of like, yeah, some people can be good, some people can be bad, some people can be a bit both. There's grey in the world, isn't there? So it'd be interesting to see how they go on with this CM Punk versus Drew. And will the US audience be affected by how a Scottish audience reacts as well to whatever happens tomorrow night? Mark says, problem if they do Drew versus Gunther is Drew has to beat Gunther. But if Drew loses Gunther, must beat Priest. Yeah, there's so many sort of dynamics, and it's almost like they've kind of thrown things in, which I've said I'm a big fan of. Like when you go back and watch any of the Attitude Era, what I loved was whatever week you were in, there was about 4, 5, 6 people who could instantly be going after the belt, and you didn't know which one it was going to be that week or that month, and who was going to be able to have that title shot, and they were all vying for each other. They would probably cost each other the title, things like that. So I really enjoy the fact that there's more than one person who is the standout to go for that championship. So yes, Damian Priest has it, but Drew McIntyre could take that at any point. CM Punk could probably take it at any point. Gunther could definitely take it at any point. And then, of course, you've got people like Seth Rollins who aren't there at the moment, but they're a viable option at any point. They could come back and take it. So, yeah, lots of things that are kind of harken back. And maybe that's where Triple H is kind of thinking, let's get it back to that. Let's have like a lot of people involved because, hey, if you're wrestling, you want to go for the big title, right? Gamer Plaza 91, $. I don't know if that's like a proper name or anything. Hi, good to see you. They are asking, do you think CM Punk will mess up Drew for the title? Yes, but if he doesn't, then I think he's going to help him win and then try and take it off of him. So in a roundabout way, yes, either way. But I'm really excited. I'm more excited to see how the Scottish fans react because the Scottish aren't going to pull any punches. The Glaswegian crowd will go crazy if Drew gets screwed out of it because I still remember vividly being in the Prince Ballock Stadium in Cardiff where Solo Sikoa costed the match and people were not happy. The mood coming out of that was awful. People were just like, it's never going to end. It's always going to happen. They're going to introduce more Bloodline members and they're just going to constantly screw people out and it's the same finish every time. And it'll be interesting to see if we get something similar. I know a couple of the media guys who are going to be there, so I can kind of ask them what the feeling is if it happens, afterwards, or we might just hear it and see it on the screen anyway. Drew wins, then Punk comes out and walks out with the title. We could just see something as simple as that. Like, do we just see like a showdown, and that's how they kind of get around this idea of like, does one of them have to be the bad guy, etc. Niven says Drew deserves the belt more than Damian, in my opinion. Yes, he had his moment, but not as huge as this can be. Yeah, you've got to think like Drew winning the title off Damian Priest, where there's no one who can cash in on him in his hometown. It's going to be a monster pop if he were to win. I just think I'm interested in the dynamic of like there's so many titles on the line that some of them could, as I said at the top of the show, some of them could change, none of them could change. All of them could change, I guess, but like, let's face it, that's not going to happen. But it's just kind of like you then think which one's more realistic of what's going to happen. So I think if you go by my predictions, it's likely that the only title change that we see tomorrow are the women's tag team titles and the Intercontinental title. But let me know. What do you think? Are we going to see multiple title changes? Are we going to see none, etc.? Let me know in the comments. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow night? But we're going to keep it nice and short tonight because I appreciate people in the UK have probably already been watching a fair few hours of wrestling. You might have been watching the football and then you want to go to bed. I mean, I've got a running event tomorrow. If you want to know a little bit more about that, go follow me over on Roller Coaster and Running. If you want to know about the running side of things, I have that. But of course, you're always welcome here at Wrestling Royalty. You're always welcome here at Gimme a Hole Yeah, and we appreciate you for joining. If you haven't watched Sam's stream of SmackDown, put it on. You can kind of see his reaction to what's going on. And it's this first one back in a little while because he had a couple of different ones to go on. Midlet, I think we will see 2 title changes. Drew wins and Unholy Union wins. Mark said we'll probably have predictions ready for tomorrow unless Dan has already done them. I don't think he's posted them. I'm not 100% sure. But if you go on to social medias, make sure you follow Gimme a Hole Yeah. Make sure you hit the subscribe button right here. I think the guys are potentially planning on doing a watch along tomorrow night. So the only way you'll find out is if you subscribe and hit that notifications bell, and make sure you do that for Wrestling Royalty as well. But we appreciate every single one of you, and thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoy the show tomorrow night. I'm sure we'll be covering it next week when we're back on, and we'll go into a couple of things that have happened over on NXT. We'll go over a couple of things that have happened on Raw and SmackDown since. But again, have a lovely weekend. We will see you very soon, and all that's left to say is, let me just get rid of this. All that's left to say is I've been Andy. This has been Wrestling Royalty and Gimme a Hole Yeah. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you real soon.